rather snappy, won't you? I have some very heavy thinking to do before 10 o'clock.
Hello and welcome to episode number 68 of the History of Aviation podcast. I'm Derrick, Beeler, your host. And in this episode, you got me, Shae, and Julien Martenson because we're going to talk about Julien's book that he has coming out here real soon, Aircraft Manufacturing, Trends and Career, and their, we do that again, Aircraft Manufacturing, Trends and Their Career Paths. So whether you're a seasoned aviation professional, a student exploring career option, or simply somebody who just loves airplane, you're in for a treat. So fasten your seatbelts, prepare for takeoff as we dive in this fascinating conversation with Julien Martenson. What is going on, Julien?
Oh, hey, Derrick, how are you doing? Well, I'm really pleased to be invited on your podcast. And just go to great afternoon in writing, and I'm here to inspire your listeners with some exciting stories about aviation.
Well, let's dive into to this book to start with. So, can you share with us your experience at Expo '86 in Vancouver and how that shaped your interest in aviation and book writing?
Well, this is how it all started. And I think to give the book its justice, I would like to read a section from you for you from this book, and it answers exactly that question.
Absolutely.
Wh- When I was about 11 years old, my parents took me to the legendary Expo 1986 in Vancouver, set against the sparkling waters of False Creek. With the theme Transportation and Communication, World in Motion, World in Touch, the expo coincided with Vancouver's centennial and brought the world's most cutting edge innovations right to our doorstep. Imagine the thrill of a young kid, eye wide open and brimming with curiosity as nations from across the world gathered to showcase their feats in transportation and communication. Over its 6 month run, Expo 86 featured awe inspiring displays tracing the evolution of flight. Hot air balloons floated high above blips, and early propeller engines marked the bygone era. Jet engines thundered as they demonstrated the leap of modern aviation. Even rockets made an appearance, hinting at humanity's future beyond the skies. I remember marveling at the displays of aviation milestones, from the first flight across the English Channel to the Canadian Pavilion nostalgic photos from the 1940s showing flight attendants delivering fresh cut uh, daffodils from Victoria and delivering at them all the way to Ottawa to celebrate Canada Day. This event wasn't just an exhibit, it was the world's worth of wonder, inspiring the new generation to dream big in the world of boundless possibilities. The new generation entering the aviation workforce is stepping into an industry with a rich legacy, far more impactful than any other. Aviation is not simply about transporting people. It's a field that is steeped in national pride, as every nation's airline serves as their flying symbol of its identity. Look at the unmistakable Union Jack from British Airways fleet, the tricolors of Air France, and the red flag of the Maple Leaf Air Canada. These symbols aren't just represent the airlines, they embody the pride and aspirations of the entire nation. So that's the introductory to my book, Aircraft Manufacturing. So it starts off with a brief touch about the passion and encapsulates the essence of air transportation.
Absolutely, and that's a great way to get started here. So, what was some of the most memorable exhibits that you've seen there at Expo '86 that left a lasting impression on you?
Well, there were many pavilions from all over the world. Many countries came, the Philippines, the United States, Belgium, Costa Rica. But what really made an impact for me was that a monument from air transportation. And so it had some hot air balloons. It was like a structure of made from metal, and it had hot air balloons, and it described basically symbolized the history of flight in one visual representation. And this stayed with me even to this day. and it really encapsulates the history of aviation with each of its milestones, which corresponds with the theme of Expo 86, transportation and communication.
You'll get that next one, Shae.
Sure do, absolutely. I just want to say first and foremost, I love that introductory. That was awesome.
Excellent.
Yeah, I really. It's kind of making me jealous. I want to go get the book. Oh my
It's not
goodness.
out yet. He's not
No.
editing it until January.
Oh, fair enough. Hey, can't get it soon enough. Come on, man.
I know, but um, it's coming out in a little bit. But by the
That
time we
is
finish
awesome.
this and we edit it and put it online and people
Yeah,
find it, the book will be out. So
that is so cool. I'm super excited. All right, so you describe aviation as steeped in national pride. How do you think that this national pride influences the aviation industry in today's world?
So the aviation industry is not just like any other industry, like selling hair color products or
Mm.
textiles or beverages. The aviation industry was very competitive, and countries competed against each other to claim the prizes and the glories of early aviation, to have that first flight across the English Channel, to have make that first transcontinental flight, to make that first trans-Pacific or transatlantic flight, or to make that first flight around the globe or to the moon. So it's very competitive between the nations. And it also has its direct links to national pride and national defense. So you have to think that World War One and World War Two came, and those were combats of the air, and so aviation progressed very quickly during those short years, including navigational aids, a pressurized cabin, instruments, air traffic control.
Mm.
All those things developed very quickly, as well as a transition to an all metal fuselage.
Yeah.
So the aviation industry progressed rapidly during moments of war where uh, the country's security was challenged by the aviation. And so this national pride still carries out into our commercial aviation today, because as you see, a lot of airlines carry their the flag colors, their national colors, on the tail of the
I
aircraft.
was just gonna say,
Right.
yeah, on the
Yeah.
And
tail.
and so this is we see that, and when you arrive at an airport, you're going to say, "Oh, look, there's Air France," and "Oh, look, that's an American Airlines." Oh, and
Yeah.
that's South African Airlines because of the tail of the aircraft. And so, ironically, um, the laws of the country apply to that aircraft. Doesn't matter where it is. So, how does that play out? For an example, if you give birth to somebody, you have a child, and you're on board an American aircraft, but that aircraft is in Europe,
Like
uh,
in the air.
in the
Over.
air or
Right.
on the
Yeah.
ground in Europe, uh, the nationality of that child is going to be decided by the country of the United States, for an example, because the aircraft is registered in that country. And so
Interesting.
if you're flying with
Wow.
British Airways and you're in the United States and on the ground, because you're in that aircraft that's registered in the UK, the nationality of that child is going to correspond with British laws. And so we talk about jus sanguinis and jus, what's it called? So it's basically the laws of the ground or the laws of the blood. And so this implies that the nationality of the child, regardless of where the aircraft is, because it's related to the registration of that aircraft. And so those laws apply. So that's what makes air aviation interesting, as
So
well
to
as
kind of, yeah, that's very, I did not know that. That's very cool. So to kind of play off of that, so I am American, and my my wife's Brazilian, but when we're married now, so she's now here with us. So if we get on a flight to go from here to Texas, or I'm sorry, from here to like, well, I'll use to the United Kingdom, and we're flying on an airline, like a direct flight, but we start in the United States. And it's a United Kingdom airline, and we're not left yet. We're on the in the plane. The door is closed, but we're on the ground. She has a baby on that plane. Is it now going to be? Do we get to decide whether or not we want them to be, or is it like dual?
So normally, if you follow the British laws, I have to look it up because I have notes on that. I believe that the uh, the nationality in that case would follow the British law, which would be that the child is British because you're on a British flight, and so you are on their territory the moment you embark on that airplane. And so
cool.
so you need to really think about if you're going to have birth on an airplane, you need to think strategically. Time it well.
Yeah. So that got me. This kind of would, we don't have to go this route, but it's different rules, different laws for different things. You have like the maritime stuff for like when you're on the waters, and you have like the airline stuff when you're in the airlines. That's really, really cool.
Yes, it is. And also the laws of the country apply to the aircraft. So for an example,
fair.
Uh, in Canada, everything is bilingual, English and French.
Right.
So Canada law says English and French, so all the announcements are in English and French. So regardless where that airplane goes, it's complying with the Canadian law to do everything bilingual in English and French. So, but it also the caution is that if you're criminal law also applies. So, like if you were to murder somebody on an aircraft, you would fall into compliance with the Canadian law. However, if the plane lands, then you're subject to the laws of the local country. So it can kind of get a little bit messy. So this is where on Sky disorderly conduct on the plane becomes very tricky, because if you're on the airplane and you're like, oh, okay, I'm going to drink, I'm going to be obnoxious, and you land the plane, you don't know where that plane is going to land, and you don't know what the laws are. So you may be treated as a criminal, because
and their laws
now
may be harsher than
this is true. Right. And so now this is what happened with a crew, a registered Canadian crew. They went to the Dominican, and they found drugs on board the airplane. Somebody put drugs on the airplane, and 8 duffel bags. And the crew, I know.
There's a whole documentary on this. This is insanely cool. Yeah.
This is true. And so 8 duffel bags. So how is a Canadian crew going to get access to 8 duffel bags of cocaine? I find that very difficult to justify. However, they were subject to the Dominican law, and their laws are much different. And they're like, oh, well, you're a crew and you found the bags, so they're your bags. And so they were deemed as prisoners, and they were put in prison. And it was a big deal to get them out and to bring them back to Canada. It took them like 9 months.
It's another version of basically.
And so they didn't even make a crime, allegedly, but they didn't make a crime, but they were already subject to their laws. And if you're in Canada, you'd have to prove that you're guilty or have justified cause or all these types of scenarios. But in other countries, that is not always the case. So if you're going to have disorderly conduct on board the plane, think a little bit before you do such thing, because you don't know where the plane's going to land, and you don't know what kind of laws. You don't know the unknown. So be wise and don't do that kind of stuff.
Behave yourself on a plane for sure. And leading up to this next question, Julian, me and you talked the other day, and I was talking about how I read your first book on careers in aviation and wished I could have went back to 18 and looked at some of these careers instead of the career path I took personally. So in what way can young professionals entering the aviation workplace honor and build upon this rich legacy?
So young people, they can build upon the rich legacy because they have all the experience and the role models available to them for them to learn. The aviation industry has reached its maturity level, and they also have access to all the current technology that
Mm-hmm.
is already set in place and set in motion. And so for the Gen Zs who are coming in, and that's for all those um, kids at ages 12 to 28, and you're looking for a career, then this industry has everything that you need to offer. It's mature, it's established, it's turnkey, it's ready to go. You just need to enroll in some college or post-secondary education, and the industry is welcoming and is looking for the new leaders for tomorrow. And so there's lots of opportunities in this industry, particularly in the aircraft manufacturing industry.
Well, let's dive into manufacturing itself and talk about how have aircraft structure components evolved over the decades. Can you give some highlights and some key innovations of these impacts of the industry?
So the aviation industry, it has evolved a lot. Um, it started with the construction of aircraft that were built with wood and canvas,
Mm-hmm.
and then it evolved to including metal structures of aviation and pressurized cabin, and now it's evolved yet again to include um, carbon fiber composite materials, which makes the aircraft so much more lighter and flexible to design, as well as they have the fused wing and fuselage, so it's all one piece. And this is what you get
Yeah.
through
Mm-hmm.
carbon fiber composite material construction. And so the actual construction of aircraft itself has evolved in so many ways that now it's all this current technology, and this history has only been the industry is only about 100 years old. So you could just imagine how it's going to evolve again the in the next 10 years, in the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, I seen a an old as I think it was well I didn't see it. It was an old radio ad for the Ford Tri Motor of I guess that was at the 30s and how you know at that time the Ford Tri Motor was the way to travel, and now we have double deckers, four engines, So
Yep.
with that said, how has modern engineering and technology changed the way aircraft are designed and built today?
So the key ways in modern engineering and technology is there's really transformed aircraft design and construction with the integration of advanced materials, including the widespread use of composite materials,
Mm-hmm.
computer aided design, and twin engines. Now I love this because I'm a single child. I'm an only child, and I always wanted a twin brother that I could play with and exchange ideas. So now twin digital twins is they actually create a digital twin of that aircraft, and they can put it through um, tests on the computer for safety, durability, and structural integrity. And so they're able to predict when certain parts are going to need to be replaced rather than replacing them on a time sequence. They replace it on a durability a scale, and so this changes the frequency and therefore saves money. And so this is one of the technologies that are coming out. We also use a lot of robotics in the construction and the assembly of aircraft, including the adoption of blended wing and body design that I mentioned earlier, as well as green and sustainable technology is a big push in the industry. Modern engineering and technology have revolutionized aircraft design and manufacturing, making them safer, greener, and more efficient than ever.
Yeah, I love thinking about like how planes are built. Like when you get on a plane, you don't really think about it that much. You just get on the plane, make sure your seatbelt's on, and then take a video of the plane taking off from the window, right? But I'll tell you what, I mean, I've always been told, I don't know if it's actually true, but I've always been told that the wings are the strongest part of the aircraft. And I don't know how true that actually is, but I'll tell you what, every once in a while, I mean, I do trust the aircraft whenever I do fly, but it is kind of
Oh yeah.
offsetting sometimes when you get the mini turbulence and you watch the wing kind of go like that. You're like, oh, no, I don't know if I like that. But it's is that true that the wings are the strongest part of the aircraft?
Well, I don't claim to be an engineer. However, I will be able to say this. The wing is designed like this. And
Mm-hmm.
so the top of the part of the wing is always longer and the bottom is shorter. And
Mm.
so this creates the difference in airflow and the speed of air. And so the faster the air, the lower the pressure. And the slower the air, because this is the same distance, it's slower here, it
Mm.
creates more pressure. And this creates the lift.
It's like versus drag versus
This
lift.
is
Right.
exactly it. And now with the composite materials, the wings are actually very flexible, and they do tests on wing construction. Exactly. And
Yes.
they attach cables to it, and they stretch it up like this and pull it down to
Yes.
test the maximum um, pressure on the force to push the wing up or down. And you can watch movies on this, and there's lots of
Yeah. It's
information.
very interesting.
Like I said, I'm not an engineer, so I can't explain it, but this is where the theory comes from. And so when you're in the airplane and you see the wings do like this, it's they're
It's well
constructed
within its thing. It's
flexibility. Yeah.
parameters of
Yes,
testing.
exactly. And so they tested that. So that doesn't mean that the wings are um, falling apart or anything. It's that they're designed to have a little bit of flex to it.
Yeah, because that's where they put the fuel too.
Well, exactly.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly.
so that's kind of cool.
You
That is
mentioned
awesome.
you mentioned how airlines serve as flying symbols for their nation. How do you think the symbolism affects the percentage and operation of these airlines?
How does it affect the perception? So,
Perception, yes.
well, you're right. Airlines are perceived as a symbol of the nation. Um, so during my role as a curbside security at Pearson Airport, I got to witness numerous air crews that would exit the airport. Air France came, Emirates, KLM, British Airways, Singapore Airlines, Lufthansa crews, and they would peacock like goddesses as if they were divine creatures right in front of me. And because they literally just landed from the sky. And the first impression always leaves a striking impression, especially on me because I was a flight attendant. However, there needs to be caution. A perception is very subjective. And so, depending on the flight, and if there's a delay on that flight, there's a huge factor in the change of that perception of the airline and the mood of the passengers and their compounding stress.
Mm.
So, the key is to always give that very good first impression, and airlines are in competition with each other to give that um, first impression. There's also a technical service component to airline serviceability, and so that includes malfunctions, delays, crew punctuality, and these types of parameters. However, the perception does also alter a lot if the flight is delayed. Here's an example. On Air Transat, we had the same video on the outbound and the return flights for the entire summer. And we had the same wine, red wine, and white wine for the entire summer. And if it was, the flight was on time, there was no complaints. But if the flight was delayed, then people start pinpointing all the other things. Oh, and the meals are no good, and all the videos no good, and all the
Yeah,
wines no good, because now they're in a
Mm-hmm.
negative
right. People in general tend to do that.
mindset. And so and it's hard to snap out of it because now he's found
Mm.
one wrong thing, and now they're going to
There
pinpoint other
must be
things.
other things that are wrong, and I will
Exactly.
find
But I
them.
guarantee you that movie was the same the whole summer or for the
Oh
entire
yeah.
month.
Yeah.
So
That red wine tasted the same all summer
the
too.
red this is true. And so it's just the perception of that entire flight. And so when a flight does, or the passenger feedback, um, if they get a big load of complaints, they look, well, was there a delay on that flight, and what's the source of that complaint? And then they're able to pinpoint the root cause of that complaint. So if they're complaining about the service, it's sometimes related with another factor.
Which
And
could
there,
be the ATC, not necessarily the crew or
Right.
the
well, this is
pilots.
true, and so there's sometimes a little bit of confusion among passengers in that they think that weather and air traffic control are that the airline can control those factors, and in fact they can't. And and so the perception is that they're able to um, go just whenever they want.
Yeah, well, that's another thing. I mean, I've flown a lot. I mean, obviously not probably not more than you, but I mean, because you were that was your job. That's what you did. But as a regular Joe traveler guy, I've traveled a lot. Um, it's so much fun, and a lot of times, like you have delays. And thankfully, I've only had a handful of like really long delays while you're still on the plane. Because I'll tell you what, there's there's almost nothing when in this realm here. There's almost nothing more frustrating than getting on the plane, pulling away from the gate. You're out. You're not even fully on the tarmac yet, or the not the runway, but the taxiway. You're like in that weird middle zone, and you're just sitting there, and you're like, why are we sitting here? Nobody said anything. 10 minutes turns to 20, 20 turns to 30, and you're like, they haven't even said why we're just sitting here. And you're looking out the window trying to, is there a long line of planes? Because then if you can see a long line of planes, at least you know that they're all waiting too. So that kind of dumbs that down. But then they'll finally come like, well, there's weather, so we need, we were debating on whether or not we're going to wait or we're going to take you back, because they can't control, like you said, they can't control the weather. And so they're waiting for ATC, who probably have better views on radar than the pilots do, because they just have their instruments and their cell phones, and this is not going to be as accurate on their cell phones as it is on the computers. And so they can communicate back and forth, say, hey, wait another 30 minutes because it looks like it's going to turn this way or go do this thing or whatever, and then we'll try to squeeze you through that so you can just jet out, no pun intended.
And so this is exactly the case. It's air traffic control, and often there's a lot of variables that can come up in a scenario like that. And you were very correct. Air traffic control, congestion on the runway, an incoming flight. If there's weather,
Yeah.
de-icing issues. There's a whole
Yes.
bunch of stuff.
And really, it's all about the safety of the people that have paid the money to fly.
And this is correct. You nailed the head on the hammer on the head of the nail on the head. There's also there could be animals on the runway. I've heard
That's true.
not so often in North America, but in third
Hmm.
world countries, sometimes where they don't have perimeter fencing, there might be a dog or a cow on the runway, and this is absolutely normal. And so you have to wait for this animal to very gracefully leave, and then we can depart.
You better hope that it's not in India and it's not a cow, because they will wait. They will not make the cow move in India.
Yeah, there you go. So,
That's awesome. Thanks for that.
So we're gonna skip question 8, and we're gonna jump right into career paths in aviation, which is start with question number 9. So we're talking to Julien Martenson here on the History of Aviation podcast about his up and coming book called Aircraft Manufacturing Trends and Their Career Paths. So Julien, let's get into what your mission is here, which is career paths for young folks. So what unique opportunity does a career in aviation offer compared to other fields?
well, I just love your question, and I thank you so much for asking it. And I'm just so passionate about this, and I'll just get right into it. The aviation industry presents a world of opportunities uniquely tailored to its dynamic and multifaceted nature. It thrives on global connectivity, acting as a bridge that unites people, businesses, cultures worldwide. With its progressive embrace of technology, aviation offers career paths in cutting edge fields such as robotics, engineering, and physics, often incorporating innovations like automation and AI. Teamwork is a part of the of this customer-focused industry, which spans passenger travel, cargo, and freight operations, ensuring that essential goods and services reach their destinations. The sector also boasts competitive compensation and, in many roles, the opportunity to travel, offering a lifestyle that combines work and adventure. However, its global nature also makes it as sensitive to external factors such as currency fluctuations, economic volatility, and political instability, which can influence operations and profitability. Moreover, aviation is at the mercy of natural events, earthquakes, floods, hurricanes, and other acts of God, which can disrupt the schedules and pose safety challenges. This industry also brings a profound emotional dimension, as it has a power to bring families together or separate them across distances. Despite its challenges, the aviation industry sector remains a vital, innovative, and rewarding industry where passion, resilience to create a career path filled with purpose and impact.
Wow, that's awesome.
We'll skip 10 and Shae, you go to 11.
To 11. All right. So you emphasize the importance of diversity and inclusion in aviation. How can the industry better embrace these values? And secondly, why are these crucial for the future of success?
So, as the aviation industry evolves, one challenge is our aging population. Airlines and airports will have to adapt to catering to the needs of the larger seniors as they continue to travel and explore this amazing world. So seniors are getting older, and that demographic is still traveling. So airlines need to adapt to the aging passenger demographic group. Another issue is that the aviation industry is based on Western norms and culture, which is evidenced in queuing and the perception of the passenger's bubble, dietary perception, and the concept of personal and human rights. So as the aviation industry grows and the world becomes more globalized, other areas of the world will also want to travel, and it's going to challenge these Western norms. And so the industry has to adapt to incorporate other cultures in what is perceived as it'll challenge the Western concept of what is normal. And in Canada and the US, passengers are getting bigger. However, the airline seats are getting smaller and the seat
Mm-hmm.
pitch is getting tighter. And so this
Yep.
creates a conflict between providing value to the passengers in terms of giving them a comfortable travel experience, or value in terms of giving them the seat the size of a matchbox. So it's um, it's going to be a challenge, and airlines have to really struggle with that between creating dense seating population, a seating pitch, and at the same time cater to um, the, the size of the passengers. Aviation has been hit with its critical mass. Therefore, air travel is accessible to the majority of people. It is no longer perceived as just a luxury. It is more of a mode of travel. So, as other countries also start traveling, the perception is that air travel is out of the reach of the majority in other developing countries. And so this creates a tension with the perception of air travel. Is it a luxury item, or is it a mode of transportation? And if it's a mode of transportation, it's accessible to everybody.
Yeah, and to piggyback on that, I wanted to get your thought on something that goes along with this. They've had they've had shows that have done, tests on boarding the plane, which way is the best way to board the plane, and you've seen different things. Well, I've seen some concept where you have a chair up here, and then you have another down here where you kind of have like a step up, and then right in the same you have another one you kind of shimmy in here, so you kind of, but they're almost the same width as one row, but they're almost stacked, so it works. What to kind of piggyback on this? what have you had for thoughts that while you were in that industry that were like, hey, if we did something like this thing might work better?
So what you're trying to describe is stacked seating. So
Yes.
instead of the rows being behind each other, they're like this. So I've
Right.
saw an illustration on that.
Yeah.
Um,
I thought it looked
so
cool. I've never experienced that,
I
but
think it's a phenomenal idea if you really want to increase that seating pitch. In practicality, I don't know how practical it is because if somebody needs to get out and use the washroom, they have to climb all over those people, and you basically have nothing more than 12 inches between you and the next person. So the
right.
practicality of it may not be so good.
Really the
And
only person that's fine is the guy on the aisle.
Yeah.
yeah, and it's already hard enough as it is. If flights are, an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, and can you really endure that for that period of time? But it'll be interesting to see if they're able to do some um, pilot flights with that and see how the passengers respond after being privileged to experience that type of a seating composition. And I'm hoping to receive the feedback if anybody has any
Yeah.
articles about this type of cabin configuration.
Yeah, I think that probably would work better like on the really big flights, the international type flights where you have the three rows. And then what you could do is just put two seats, do the stacked two seats. That way you don't have that middle guy like, oh, which way do I go?
I don't know if I could sit in one of those bottom seats or not.
I don't
I
know. Hey,
don't think I would like
somebody
that.
they're serving beans in the middle of the flight, that one guy. Ooh, we don't need to
Eh.
uh
Julian, what advice would you give to young professionals from diverse backgrounds who are looking to enter in the aviation industry?
So my advice for young people, first and foremost, follow your passion. A career is a long time, so do something that you enjoy doing. However, I do give another point of advice. Don't build your career on your weakness. Your weakness will never become your strength, no matter how much tutoring or mentorship that you take. So don't build a career on your weakness. If you don't like numbers and you can't count, don't be an accountant.
Exactly.
And so the aviation industry, a lot of the careers are STEM-based careers, meaning science, technology, engineering, and math. So if you have an interest in those areas and you're like calculating, you like geometry, you like calculating the circumference or these types of things, algebra, then you're going to be good at doing pilot roles, aviation management roles, um, those types of careers, aircraft engineering roles. If your passion is music, then follow that dream for sure, 100%. In my case, my career path was not typical. It was a journey made of many crooks and bends and and whatnot, but it's shaped me into the person that I am, and I'm still able to leverage that and bring my passion to this industry in what I do best in sharing my passion in public speaking, and I just love aviation nonstop.
Well, and as long as I have known you, which has been briefly, you started joining us on the podcast. I don't know how many episodes ago was it, Julian? We talked about your
Three
book.
months ago.
Yeah, and you've kind of been on with us, and then we brought Shae on, and here the three of us are. But one thing I do want to say that you are one of the most compassionate people I've seen about what you do.
mm, I
Very much
agree.
so.
Yeah, I totally agree.
So what we'll
Thank you very
do,
much.
we'll skip to 17. Sorry, Julian, it's not you. It's time. Time is hugely important. So we'll skip to go ahead and go with 17, Shae.
17. All right. So, what do you see as the future of aviation in terms of technological advancements and career opportunities for the next generation? Is that what we
Well,
just did?
I see a lot of potential for young people, and sometimes there's just too much information and it's not right at your fingertips. And so, to that end, I would like to read a clip from one of my books,
Sure.
Aircraft Manufacturing Trends and Their Career Paths. And it goes like this: The future is calling you. The future of flight beckons young aviation believers are in an unparalleled position to respond with daring imagination and insightful vision. Opportunities are great and game changing in state of the art startups, established aviation corporations, and pioneering research institutions. Seize the reins in redefining the skies through innovation, adaptability, and sustainability mindset. From leveraging emerging technologies to addressing pressing global issues like climate change and urban congestion, your contributions will shape the aviation industry and make an impact on the world. Now is the time to step forward, seize the opportunities that await, and make your mark in this dynamic field. Collaboration, creativity, and a lifelong learning will guide you through a career of discovery and purpose. The aviation industry isn't just a sector, it's a global community. You'll build a more sustainable and inclusive future for everyone in innovation. So take flight with your dreams. The future of aviation awaits. The sky is not the limit, it is just the beginning. And
Yeah,
that
Absolutely, it is. And
that's a great carpe diem moment right there.
love it. And the book is called Aircraft Manufacturing Trends and Their Career Paths with Julien Martin. Julien, when and how can listeners purchase this book?
the book is in the editing process, but it's going to be available on Amazon and on other online book platforms. And you can, without hesitation, you can reach out to me on my website, www.julianmartenson.com. And I'm currently reaching out to youth aviation clubs and flight clubs, the Air Cadets, and I want to reach out to those anybody that's hosting organizations in Canada or the United States that's interested in having an aviation career coach speak to the young people.
Very
Absolutely.
cool.
I think and we're looking forward to this book. I know I when you first came on the podcast a while back, and like I said, you're now a regular co-host. You're a regular voice on this podcast. Uh, yeah. Thanks so much, Julian, for coming on talking about your book with me and Shae.
Yeah, appreciate it very much.
Well, thank you very much. It's truly a distinguished pleasure for me to be on this host and bring to this wonderful community all the life experience that I have and the knowledge that I bring.
Yeah, I know I've definitely learned at least a couple of different things that I did not know before today, so I appreciate that very much.
Yeah, and so guys, speaking of, we were talking about the Patreon earlier, Shae. Shae Jones producing and co-hosting with me today. Uh, we actually have on the Patreon right now some after we did the F 22. Julian read some stuff from not just this book, not just from aircraft manufacturing trends and their career paths, but he also read some stuff from some books that are coming out after this one, and you can only catch that exclusively on Patreon.
That's awesome. Wow.
So yeah, so that helps support the show. That helps us keep us doing what we're doing here, guys. And that's $8 a month. You can join that, and you can get. Yeah, so by joining a Patreon community for just $8 a month, you'll gain access to exclusive member benefits like behind the scene contents, what we was just talking about, behind the scenes with Julian this last episode and reading some of his book parts. You can make special requests. We do member shout outs, and here's the cool part. So any Patreon in the future can be a member of our recordings as a guest. So let me clarify something. You're a guest, you can hear us, you can see us, we can't hear you. So let me clarify, that's not a host, that's a guest. I've already had a question about that. So
Yeah.
it's nothing against anybody. We can't have 40 guests. Or if not 40, we can have 40 guests, we can't have 40 hosts. So
Right.
that's all the
It's
cool
kind of like a
things.
VIP seat where you're in the same room with us listening and
Yeah.
watching.
Right. And you can actually, now with that said, you can comment. You can make a comment that we can
Yeah.
see. And smart
Yeah,
ass
that's fine.
comments will be ignored. But anyway.
Or we will be enacting the age-old "I am rubber."
Yeah, so our producer Shae is gonna have an eject button.
Yeah, that's
So
it.
those stupid smart comments will be the I don't know. Did you ever see the boat commercial? You probably didn't, Julian, in Canada, but we had a boat commercial here where the guy's fishing on the front of his boat, and his girlfriend's sitting in the back of the boat talking on the phone, and she won't shut up, and he keeps reaching over to this little button that said eject. And finally, he had enough, and he ejected her, and she shot up in the air. So that's what's going to happen if you make a rude comment during the live recording. So, or you can also make a one-time PayPal donation, which helps us tremendously. All those links in below. Julian, go over. So you got your Facebook,
You got the website. Yep.
The website. What else you got? Is there anywhere else people can go?
Yes, I'm also. You can also find me on LinkedIn and Instagram, and I'm in the process of beefing up my Facebook profile as well as LinkedIn and Instagram. And there's my website, www.julienmartenson.com.
And that will be in the show notes below, as well as all things History of Aviation podcast, including the Patreon link and the PayPal link I just mentioned, as well as we're on Twitter, what's that, X now or something?
Yeah.
Facebook, Instagram. Our short videos from the podcast you can find on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, all that. It's just easier to say. All that's listed down below. All Julian's links and everything else. And I want to say thanks, Shae, for not only producing this episode but helping me co-host it.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. Thank you, Julian, for answering my silly questions in between. Sometimes my brain kind of goes on its own little thing, ADHD as I am, but
we both have it.
I know, it's crazy. Doing what I do for work, and sometimes I catch myself. So I'm like, nope, bring it back. So I'm grateful to you for answering the questions. I really appreciate it.
Well, it's truly an honor, and I like your passion and your intrigue, and I enjoy answering your questions. So it's a good mix.
Awesome sauce.
Very much is. I appreciate it, guys.
That is awesome. All right, cool. Till next time.
So until next time, like Shae just said, safe travels and keep your eye in the sky. And remember, your next adventure is just a download away. So subscribe to the History Aviation podcast today and do not miss a beat. So for Julien Martenson, Shae Jones producing and co-hosting, this is History of Aviation podcast. I hit the wrong button.
That's it. Be safe. Drink milk.
Great podcast, guys.
Recording stopped.
Great. I think I have to edit that one out.
That's all right. No
you guys
worries.
just talked all over my outro. Ugh.
It was a good outro too.
That was a good outro. I'm gonna play this outro again if everybody will be quiet, so I don't have to do so much editing. All right. I need to redo that anyway. So.
Do you want me to start re-recording?
No, I got it on the P4. We're
okay,
good.
Gotcha.
Yeah. All I use the recording on Zoom for is a short video. So let me redo the ending. I'm gonna mute you guys. Dang it, Bobby. Shae, Julian probably don't know what that is. For Julien Martenson, Shae Jones producing and co-hosting, I'm Derrick Beeler. Thanks for listening to the History of Aviation podcast.